Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.
Well, OCE Technology has recently signed a new contract with the European Space Agency to develop an operating system for its missions. The stratospheric growth of this Irish company has enabled it to develop and sustain collaborative and investment relationships in China, and its CEO Barry Kavanagh joins us now to tell us more. Barry, we'll be talking about OCE Technology's new contract with the European Space Agency. But first, I'd like to get an insight into your own background.
Good to be here, Karl. Thanks for talking to us. I studied engineering at UCD and I didn't actually make it through. I was just turned 17 when I started there, and I don't think I was old enough really to start. So I worked around for a couple of years, ended up doing applied sciences in Kevin Street. I had done programming at an earlier stage in a summer job in Imperial College in London. So I went back and did a FOSS course in computer programming, ended up working for a company called Mentec International, an indigenous company that did telemetry systems and automation systems for companies like DSB and Bord na Móna. We ended up then moving into developing processor chips and video conferencing software, and ultimately ended up in the space industry, where a lot of the previous experience was very relevant to the space sector, if you like.
So what is OCE Technology and what services do you provide?
Well, we're a company set up originally to develop software tools for high reliability, high performance processors, the type that are used in harsh environments such as space, where you have huge changes in temperature, a lot of external radiation. So we start developing software tools, initially a debug tool to help embedded developers be more productive. We then, after doing a few contracts for the European Space Agency, we developed an operating system. In parallel with that, we sell with a partner based in China who develops high reliability ICs, our chips. We prepare these for sale into European markets and adhere to the European Space Agency and NASA standards. So we sell these chips, and we also sell a range of satellite subsystems which help control the attitude of the satellite, things like star trackers that point up at the stars and tell the satellite what direction it's pointing in.
And how did the opportunity come about to start working with the European Space Agency?
The company was founded on a contract to develop some software for this Chinese company. And the Chinese company, you might wonder how that came about, but the CEO of this public Chinese company, quoted on the Shenzhen Stock Exchange, had done his PhD in the mid-80s in Ireland, and he had some fond memories of the work he did here. He had jointly written a book with Professor Michael Ryan, who's our CTO, and he wanted to keep a connection with Ireland, so he invited the guys over for a New Year's party in China, and during the party he said, "Look guys, I need some software written." And OCE, our company, was set up on the back of that contract. It turned out that that particular software was of interest to the European Space Agency. Our competitor in this area had just been bought over by an American company, and the European Space Agency wanted to have another European company offering similar software. So we did a contract for them, put a very nice graphic user interface on the front of the debug tool, and then subsequently did a few other contracts to add support for European Space Agency specific chips.
And typically, who are your clients and what sectors are they operating in?
Our clients would be companies like Airbus, RUAG, companies, the main contractors developing developing satellites for space. But there's a whole new market developing at the moment called the new space market, which are lower cost satellites that don't perhaps use the same quality components that would have been used traditionally. These tend to go on satellites that are in low Earth orbit, and they have a shorter life frame, so they don't need as high quality components. Like some of these satellites might only have a 3-year lifetime, but with the costs of launching these satellites into space coming down all the time through companies like SpaceX, there's a whole new market and a much higher volume market, but much more cost sensitive as well. And so we're targeting that market with both our software and our hardware products.
So is there any opportunity directly for your company with Blue Origin, SpaceX or Virgin Galactic?
We've been knocking on their doors constantly. We've developed business in Europe, South Korea, Singapore. Our connection with China has actually worked against us, particularly in more recent days in the US. Basically, any company that's any connection, or some of our products would have final test or manufacture in China, and US companies in the space area just won't look at them at all. And I'd say the deteriorating relations between the US and China is making it quite difficult for us in the US.
And Barry, is the opportunity so big in China that you can't walk away from that market to look to explore opportunities in the US?
Well, we're trying to, at the moment, set up a European-based IC and board design operation. Just 2 weeks ago, we were out in China, and we've negotiated a series of contracts there to help grow the company by developing our own hardware, so that there wouldn't be any connection with China, and that should open up more opportunities for us in the US. But it's going to take a year or two to get there.
And talk to us about the support through Nova UCD.
We were located at the time in a building in Bray, which NAMA took over. So after a couple of years in operation, we needed to look for somewhere else. So we approached Nova UCD. They were, at the time, there was a sort of a process, an interview process for any, as what they call spin-ins into Nova, because normally it's for spin-outs from UCD. They were quite happy to have a company operating in the space area, because they were subsequently became a business incubator for the European Space Agency, and there's a number of small companies involved in the space industry in Nova. But they offer us a whole load of advice in relation to investment, in relation to IP protection, business advice, I suppose, which has been very helpful over the period we've been there. We've been there quite a few years now, maybe 6 years, I think.
And in terms of the skills that the company requires, what are they, and are they readily available here in Ireland?
Most of our team would be software developers, but it wouldn't be your typical software development that the other companies like Facebook and Google would be sort of high-level software, or Amazon. The type of software developers we would hire need to understand, at the very lowest level, they need to understand how computers work, how a lot of the programming would be done in the C language, and it's very close to the hardware. A good knowledge of hardware needs to be there. So we find it hard enough to get people with those sort of skills. As well as that, not that many companies in Ireland have been doing software for the European Space Agency who have a whole set of quality and development criteria. So people with that experience are thin on the ground. On the hardware front, I think, like everybody else, design ICs, familiar with that, there's a huge demand for those people, and to try and find an experienced person is quite difficult. We've had much more success ourselves in hiring people from college and training them up. It takes a bit longer to get them up to speed, but we've had more success in building a team using graduates directly from college.
And what can you tell us about the most recent contract that you signed with the European Space Agency and what it will mean for the development of the company?
With the advent of multi-core chips, so these are chips with multiple processors in a single chip, there has been a shortage really of certified or high reliability operating systems for these type of chips, where perhaps human safety is at risk, or even the safety of a mission. So this new development, or this new operating system that we signed a contract with the European Space Agency, is a multi-core operating system targeted at three computer architectures: RISC-V, Spark, and ARM, which are the predominant architectures in the high reliability space. We're working with the Microchip Technology Group based in Dublin. Microchip Technology are a large multinational supplying high reliability chips into all sorts of industries, and we were very lucky to get them to come on board with us as a partner in this project, so that to ensure that what we develop is going to be of interest to markets other than the space market, such as medical devices, smart manufacturing. So we would hope that longer term we have a relationship with Microchip where they would promote our products as part of their software ecosystem.
And of course, on the topic of chips, all of the news in recent weeks has been about artificial intelligence and the NVIDIA chip that seems to have a real competitive advantage. Have you been watching that?
We have, yeah. In fact, we launched a couple of years ago a new chip that we did part of the design for. It's a very powerful AI chip designed specifically for space. And in independent tests of our particular chip and the set of software tools with it, we've actually outperformed the NVIDIA offering, which tends to be very, very high power. Anyway, this new artificial AI chip that we have, it's intended to bring intelligence onto satellites. At the moment, when satellites circle the Earth, they download their data when they're over a ground station, and the data is sent off to a data center, and sometime later those images are analyzed, and the inference or the result of the analysis may be that there's pollution in a particular area, that a forest fire has been detected. But all of this takes a lot of time, 24 to 48 hours, whereas the latest moves are to use these AI chips on the satellites themselves to do the detection, to process the image on the satellite and allow the software on the satellite to decide whether that image needs to be proactively sent down to the next ground station and highlighted as something urgent. The use of AI on satellites will dramatically improve the response time for the services on the ground to tackle whatever disaster it is that has been detected.
And Barry, finally, are you building this company as an acquisition target?
We are, yeah. I think we would see maybe the most likely thing for our company would be a trade sale. We're a few years away from it yet. There's talk with our Chinese partners about maybe listing on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, another possibility, and the time frame would be 2 to 3 years in relation to that.
Well, if you've just tuned in, that was Barry Kavanagh, the CEO of OCE Technology, and we wish Barry and the team every success with its future growth.
Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.